Have you ever felt like you're on the edge of something great, yet everything around you seems to be falling apart? Have you ever wondered why, just when you're about to step into your breakthrough, life feels the hardest? I want to tell you today, what you're going through is not a coincidence. It's a sign. A sign that God is preparing something bigger than you can imagine. A sign that your blessing is closer than you think. But here's the truth. Before God gives you something great, He will test you, He will refine you, He will shape you into the person who can handle the very thing you've been praying for. Many people give up right before their breakthrough because they don't recognize the signs. They mistake preparation for punishment. They see delay as denial. But let me tell you, when God is about to give you something big, there are specific things you will see. And today, I'm going to reveal those to you so you don't miss what God is trying to do in your life. Are you ready to recognize the signs? Are you ready to hold on just a little longer? Because what's coming is bigger than you ever expected. Let's dive in. Life has a way of testing us in the moments just before something great is about to happen. You may have prayed, fasted, and trusted God for a breakthrough, yet instead of things getting easier, they seem to get harder. Doors that once looked open suddenly slammed shut. Relationships you relied on begin to shake. Challenges arise that seem designed to make you question everything. Your faith, your purpose, even God's promises. And it's in these moments that many people give up, never realizing they were standing right at the edge of the very thing they had been waiting for. I want you to understand something. Opposition is often the clearest sign that God is about to do something big in your life. The enemy doesn't waste his energy on people who aren't a threat. He doesn't stir up trouble for people who aren't carrying something valuable. If you're facing increased attacks, if life has suddenly become more difficult, if you feel like you're walking through a storm with no end in sight, let me tell you, this isn't the time to give up. This is the time to press in, because what's on the other side of this battle is greater than you can imagine. Think about Joseph. He had a dream that God would elevate him, that he would one day lead and be a blessing to many. But before that dream became a reality, what happened? He was betrayed by his own brothers, thrown into a pit, sold into slavery, falsely accused, and locked in prison. Imagine how he must have felt. At any point, he could have looked at his circumstances and said, maybe I was wrong. Maybe God didn't really speak to me. Maybe I should just accept that this is my life. But he didn't. He remained faithful even when it didn't make sense. And in one divine moment, God turned everything around. One day, Joseph was in a prison cell. The next, he was standing before Pharaoh, stepping into the destiny that had been prepared for him all along. Now, I want you to think about your own life. Have you ever faced moments where the pressure felt unbearable? Have you ever questioned why things seemed to fall apart just when you started believing for something greater? What if, instead of seeing these challenges as roadblocks, you saw them as confirmation that you were on the right path? What if the very thing you're struggling with right now is the last hurdle before your breakthrough? I've seen this pattern over and over. Right before God moves in a mighty way, He allows a season of testing. He allows situations that make us uncomfortable, that stretch our faith, that force us to lean on Him completely. Not because He wants to harm us, but because He is preparing us. Because a blessing given too soon can become a burden. Because if we don't learn how to trust Him in the struggle, we won't know how to handle the success when it comes. You see, there are some lessons you can only learn in the fire. There are some strengths you can only develop in the storm. God doesn't just want to give you a blessing. He wants to make sure you have the character, the faith, and the endurance to sustain it. And that's why before something big happens, you will see opposition rise. You will see obstacles appear that seem impossible to overcome. But hear me. This is not the time to back down. This is the time to stand firm, to hold on to the promise, to trust that God is working, even when you don't see it. David was anointed to be king, but he didn't step into that calling overnight. He spent years running from Saul, hiding in caves, facing battle after battle. Why? Because God was preparing him. He was strengthening him. He was molding him into the kind of king who wouldn't just wear the crown, but who would carry the heart of a true leader. And when the time was right, nothing could stop what God had already ordained. Maybe you're in that place right now. Maybe you feel like you're running, like you're facing battles you never expected. Maybe you're wondering if the promise is even real anymore. But let me encourage you. This is not the end of your story. The very opposition you're facing is proof that something greater is ahead. Don't let the pressure make you quit. Don't let the struggle make you doubt. What God has spoken over your life will come to pass. And when it does, you'll look back on this season and realize that every hardship, every delay, every challenge was necessary. Because when God is about to give you something big, He makes sure you're ready to receive it. Waiting is one of the hardest things we will ever do. It's uncomfortable, it's frustrating, it can make you question whether God has heard your prayers at all. You know He has promised something, you believe He is working, but nothing seems to be happening. The doors remain closed. The situation hasn't changed. And if you're honest, you wonder if you misheard Him, if maybe you got it wrong. But let me tell you something. Whenever God is about to give you something big, He first takes you through a season of waiting, not to punish you, not to discourage you, but to prepare you. The waiting season is where faith is built. It's where God refines your character, strengthens your trust in Him, and teaches you to rely on His timing instead of your own. And this is where many people struggle, because we live in a world that teaches us that waiting is a waste of time. Everything around us moves fast, instant communication, instant access, instant results. And yet God does not operate on our schedules. His timing is perfect. And if He is making you wait, it's because He is doing something in you that is just as important as what He is preparing for you. Think about Abraham. God promised him that he would be the father of many nations, yet years passed and nothing happened. He and Sarah grew older, and the promise seemed more impossible with each passing day. There must have been moments of doubt, moments of frustration, moments when Abraham wondered if God had forgotten him. But God was not delaying just to make him wait. He was working behind the scenes, orchestrating something far greater than Abraham could see. And when the time was right, when all the pieces were in place, the promise came to pass. Not a moment too soon, not a moment too late. Maybe you're in that place right now. Maybe you're standing in the middle of a long, difficult season of waiting. You've been faithful, you've been praying, and yet nothing seems to be changing. You see other people receiving their breakthroughs, stepping into their blessings, and you wonder, God, did you forget about me? But let me assure you, God has not forgotten. He is not ignoring you. He is not withholding from you. He is preparing you, because what He has for you is too important to be rushed. There are lessons you can only learn in the waiting. There are things God wants to teach you, things He wants to develop in you that can only be built through patience and trust. If He gave you the blessing too soon, you wouldn't be able to handle it. If He opened the door before the time was right, it wouldn't be a blessing, it would be a burden. And God loves you too much to let that happen. David was anointed as king when he was just a young shepherd, but he didn't take the throne right away. Instead, he went back to the fields. He spent years in obscurity, years running from Saul, years wondering when God's promise would be fulfilled. And yet during that time, God was shaping him into the leader he needed to be. By the time he finally became king, he wasn't just wearing a crown. He had the heart, the wisdom, and the strength to carry the weight of his calling. And if you're in a season of waiting, don't let discouragement make you walk away from what God is doing. He is not delaying, He is developing. He is stretching your faith, deepening your trust, and refining you so that when the promise comes, you'll be ready to receive it. And let me tell you, when God moves, it will happen suddenly. One moment, everything will seem the same. The next, doors will fly open, prayers will be answered, and you will step into the very thing you've been waiting for. But until that day comes, hold on, stay faithful, keep trusting, Because when God makes you wait, it's always for something greater than you could ever imagine. When God is about to do something big in your life, He doesn't leave you in the dark. He gives you signs. He places confirmations along your path. But the problem is, many people don't recognize them. They're looking for something dramatic, something loud, something undeniable. But more often than not, God speaks in ways that require faith to perceive. Have you ever had a moment where everything in you sensed a shift, but you couldn't quite explain it? You felt a stirring in your spirit, a deep awareness that something was about to change? That wasn't just a random feeling. That was God preparing you. Before every major move of God, He gives glimpses, small indications that He is aligning things for something greater. It might be an unexpected opportunity, a door that suddenly opens, or even a door that closes, one that forces you to move in a new direction. Sometimes, what looks like a disappointment is actually a divine redirection. Think about Moses. He had been living in the wilderness, tending sheep for years. It seemed like life had settled into an ordinary routine until one day he saw something unusual, a bush that was on fire but wasn't consumed. It caught his attention. It made him stop and look. And when he did, God spoke. Now, if Moses had been too busy, too distracted, too caught up in his routine, he might have missed it. But because he turned aside to see, he received the calling that would change his life for. How often do we miss what God is trying to show us because we are too focused on our own plans, our own frustrations, our own expectations of how things should happen? We pray for direction, but when God starts shifting things, we resist it because it doesn't look the way we thought it would. But hear me. When God is about to bless you, when He is about to take you into something greater, He will send signs. They may come through people, through circumstances, or through an unshakable sense in your heart that you can't ignore. Sometimes these signs come in the form of sudden endings, a relationship that doesn't work out, a job that comes to an unexpected close, a door that seemed like the right one but refuses to open, and in the moment it hurts, it's confusing. But what if that closed door was actually God's way of protecting you? What if He was removing something from your life to make room for something better? So often we cry over what we lost, not realizing that God was making space for what we had been praying for all along. Other times, the sign comes in the form of a deep inner conviction. Have you ever had something stirring in your spirit so strongly that you couldn't shake it? A dream, a vision, an idea that wouldn't leave you, and no matter how much you tried to ignore it, it kept resurfacing? That's not just your mind wondering. That's God placing something in you, something He wants to bring to light. But here's the challenge. When God gives a vision, it rarely comes with all the detail. He shows you just enough to take the next step. Gideon experienced this. When God called him to lead, he was full of doubt. He wasn't sure if he had heard correctly, so he asked God for confirmation, and God in His mercy gave it to him, not once, but twice. Because when God calls you to something, He knows you need reassurance, He knows you need clarity, and He is faithful to provide it. But let me warn you, sometimes the confirmation you are looking for will require faith to accept. Because when God is moving, He doesn't always send things that make logical sense. He asks you to trust Him beyond what you can see. He asks you to walk through doors you weren't expecting. He asks you to believe that He is working even when you don't have all the answers. So pay attention. Pay attention to the shifts happening around you. Pay attention to the patterns, the opportunities, the unexpected moments that seem too perfect to be coincidences. Because when God is about to give you something big, He will show you. And those who have eyes to see and hearts to trust will recognize it when it comes. When God is about to give you something big, He will always call you to step out in faith. He won't give you all the details. He won't always show you how everything will come together, but He will ask you to trust Him. And this is where many people hesitate. They want to see the full picture. They want guarantees. They want to know exactly how things will unfold before they take the first step. But faith doesn't work that way. Faith is believing when you don't have all the answers. Faith is moving when you're not sure what's on the other side. Faith is saying yes to God even when everything in you wants to wait for more clarity. Think about Peter. He and the other disciples were in the middle of a storm, the waves crashing around them, the wind raging, and suddenly they see Jesus walking on the water. And Peter does something incredible. He asks Jesus to call him out onto the water too. Now, that doesn't make sense. Everything about that moment was dangerous. Everything about that moment said, stay in the boat. But Peter understood something. If Jesus was calling him, he was safer on the water with him than he was in the boat without him. So he stepped out, and for a moment he did the impossible. For a moment, he walked on water. But then, something happened. He took his eyes off Jesus, and he started focusing on the wind, the waves, the circumstances around him, and the moment he did, he started sinking. That's what happens when we let fear override our faith. That's what happens when we allow doubt to dictate our steps instead of trusting the one who called us. But even when Peter began to sink, Jesus didn't let him drown. He reached out and pulled him back up, because that's the kind of God we serve. He doesn't call us to step out just to watch us fail. He calls us so that we can learn to trust him more deeply than ever before. Some of you have been sensing that God is calling you to something new. Maybe he's leading you to start a business, to step into ministry, to move to a new place, to leave behind what's familiar. But instead of moving, you're hesitating. You're waiting for the perfect conditions. You're waiting for a sign so clear that there's no room for doubt. But let me tell you something. If you wait for everything to make sense before you step out, you'll never move. Because faith always requires a level of uncertainty. Faith always demands trust beyond what you can see. Look at Abraham. God told him to leave his homeland, leave everything familiar, and go to a place that he would show him. Not a place he showed him in advance. Not a place with a detailed roadmap, just a place that he would reveal as Abraham obeyed. And Abraham went. He stepped out, not knowing exactly where he was going, but trusting that the one who called him would not fail him. And because he obeyed, he became the father of many nations. When God calls you to step out, it's not always going to feel comfortable. In fact, it might feel terrifying. You might look around and see all the reasons why it doesn't make sense. You might hear voices telling you to stay where it's safe. But if you want to step into the fullness of what God has for you, you have to be willing to move when he says move. You have to be willing to trust him even when you don't see the whole picture. The truth is, obedience is always the key to unlocking God's promises. So many people stand on the edge of their breakthrough, but never step into it because they let fear hold them back. They let doubt keep them stuck. But the moment you step out, the moment you say yes, even when it's scary, you position yourself for God to do something miraculous. Maybe you've been asking God for something big, but he's been waiting on you to take the first step. Maybe the miracle you're praying for is on the other side of your obedience. Maybe the door you've been asking him to open is waiting for you to walk toward it in faith. So what are you waiting for? If God is calling you, trust him. If he is leading you, follow him. The blessing is on the other side of the step you're afraid to take.